Okay, so now we're going to look at a past exam for assessment change. This is last year's paper. It's actually a higher paper. So let's take a look at the questions then. We've got a one marker question here, so it should be pretty straightforward. The graph we've got here shows the age structure of a county in the United States. So when we look at a graph, the first thing we have to do is work out how it works. So if we look here, we can see the percentage of the total population is down the bottom here, and we've got the age categories on the y-axis. Let's work out what's going on then. So I've worked out it's 2 microsquares equals 1%. So every 2 of these microsquares equals 1%. So let's take a look at what we've got to do to get our 1 mark. It says complete the graph for the 30 to 39 and 50 to 59 age groups. As you can see, these have been left blank. So let's start off with the 30 to 39. We've got to work out where 9% would be. It's very important we mark this accurately. So we work along using the same process here. Every 10 will equal 5, so that will be 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And what we need to do is we need to accurately, with our ruler, mark on where 9 would be, which is here. Now if we don't mark this accurately, if I was, for example, to put the ruler line here or put the ruler line here, we would actually lose that mark. If we look at the 50 to 59, it's 12. So again, we go along accurately until we get to 12 and we accurately mark on with our ruler. Okay, if we don't mark that accurately, we will be losing those marks. Well, let's turn over to the next question then. So the next question says describe, not explain. We don't have to explain anything here, just describe. So what do we see? Describe the differences in the age group shown in figure 3A. And it says use population data. And that is absolutely key. If we don't use the data presented to us, we will not be getting our 3 marks. If we just mention very briefly that, for example, it's varied between the groups, we certainly won't be getting anywhere near these 3 marks. So to get our 3 marks, we actually have to use population data. So let's go back to that graph again and see what it says. So we can see it's varied, and what we can see, what really stands out, is the highest percentage is the 10 to 19 category, and the lowest percentage is the 20 to 29 category. So we certainly need to mention that they are varied, and we certainly need to mention the highest and the lowest. So when we actually write our answer down, we do need to be mentioning that the highest percentage was the 10 to 19, where we will be picking up marks, and what they're going to expect us to do for these 3 marks is to actually give the percentage, so it shows that we can actually read the graph. So when we look back at the 10 to 19 category, we can read, okay, this is 15, 2 microsquares on, so that is 16%, and they would be expecting us to write down 16% here. And with the lowest category, as I said to you earlier on, the lowest category is the 20 to 29 age group, and again they're going to be expecting us to actually be able to read the graph, so we have to flip back to the graph, and when we look at this, 5, 2 microsquares, so that's actually going to be 6. So again, we have to write the percentages down. If we don't write the category and the percentage down accurately, then we will not be getting our 3 marks. Right, moving on to another 3 mark question here. It asks, the age structure on figure 3A is a consequence of rural depopulation. So we're in the focus of rural depopulation, which we spoke about earlier on in the exam revision. Outline the social impacts, so not the economic impacts, not the environmental impacts, but the social impacts. And it says use an example. So we have to use an example in order to get our 3 marks. But as we were speaking about earlier on, our example of rural depopulation will be the Western Isles. So we will be talking about the Western Isles of Scotland, okay? And we then need to think about what have the social impacts been. Well, there's a variety of social impacts. What we need to try and do for our 3 marks is to pick 3 of those out. So first of all, we can talk about a decline in services. And when we're talking about a decline in services, it could be schools, it could be shops, it could be post office, it could be banks. We also need to be talking about an ageing population structure as well. Okay, so an ageing population structure. You could be talking about abandoned homes, because obviously people have actually left. Or you could be talking about the fact that people now have to travel further to actually reach the services. So if you put those together, pick any three of those, write a sentence about them, you'll be getting your 3 marks. Right, I'm just going to whip over now to the 6-mark question. And a 6-mark question, if you don't answer it correctly, really can pull you down at least a grade. Okay, so let's take a look at this question then. It says choose one urban area. Okay, so they don't want you to be talking about 3 or 4 different urban areas. One urban area. In a low-income country, so we can't be talking about a high-income country. That you have studied. Explain the negative effects, so nothing positive, just the negative effects of rapid urban growth. Now we know that LICs and the urban areas have been rapidly populating, and we've used quite a few different case studies. We've used quite a few different case studies. So we could use Dhaka, you could use Rio de Janeiro, you could use Sao Paulo, you could use Calcutta. Okay, so any of those you could actually talk about. So you need to choose one because it says choose one, so pick one of those. And then it talks about the negative effects. So what we have to do for our 6 marks is really think about making 6 points which are negative. And obviously as geographers we need to be splitting those up into economic, social and of course environmental. So what are some of the economic, social and environmental negatives? Well, economically you could be talking about the informal economy and the problems of the informal economy, not only to the government itself and the fact that the government won't be picking any taxation up. You need to be talking about the social impacts, which could be the housing, so you'll be talking about the favelas or the busties, depending where you are. You could be talking about crime, you could be talking about prostitution, you could be talking about drugs. Okay? Environmentally, we could talk about the lack of sanitation, the lack of clean water. You could talk about the lack of garbage disposal and how that actually affects people. So we're talking about cholera, dysentery, etc. Or indeed the fact that these people environmentally live on marginal land. Stop there, Sean.